The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the White House. Very proud to have the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, on the BS Report. This is your first podcast.
I used to have my own podcast.
What?
When I was a U.S. Senator, I was way ahead of the curve on the podcast thing. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it had as many listeners as you.
What was this podcast called?
I really don't remember. A podcast with Barack Obama, I think.
It's a
Something
good
like
title.
that. It is a catchy name. Yeah.
I want to talk about sports. You have plenty of time to talk about politics with whoever. How do you have time to follow sports when you have the busiest job on the planet?
Well, first of all, I don't watch network news or cable news. So in the morning when I'm working out with Michelle, it's on SportsCenter. This is the one thing that she allows me
That's nice.
to control is SportsCenter. So that pretty much keeps up the family on whatever's happened the night before. And I tend to be a night guy. Michelle and the girls go to bed around 9:30 or so, and so I usually have to stay up till about midnight or 1 reading stuff. And every once in a while I'll sneak in a ball game as I'm reading my briefings.
That's funny because I always pictured you in bed pretending you were working but watching League Pass on your iPad, watching some West Coast game with the Clippers and Kings or something.
I do have League Pass on my iPad.
You do?
Of course.
Did you pay for it yourself or did you charge to the White House?
No, I've got to pay for it myself.
So you're catching up, obviously, on the fact that you have been surpassed as the most famous person who was a Harvard graduate.
Jeremy is doing good. And I knew about Jeremy before you did, or everybody else did, because Arnie Duncan, my Secretary of Education, was captain of the Harvard team.
Right.
And so way back when, Arnie and I were playing, and he said, I'm telling you, we've got this terrific guard named Jeremy Lin at Harvard. And then one of my best friends, his son's a freshman at Harvard, so when he went out for a recruiting trip, he saw Lin in action. So so I've been on the Jeremy Lin bandwagon.
Are you
for a while.
taking credit for Linsanity? It kind of feels like you are a little bit.
I can't take credit for it, but I'm just saying I was there early.
I'm surprised you didn't steer him toward the Bulls when he was floating around and getting waved by teams.
We've got this pretty good point guard on the Bulls as well. So
I've
he
heard
might
about him.
not have gotten as much PT as he did. But it's a great story. And what's interesting is the fact that somehow folks were missing it in practice.
Right.
I mean, that's what's interesting, because you got to assume that during scrimmages, he was running that pick and roll pretty well.
Right.
And it is a terrific story. He seems like a wonderful young man, and look, it elevates this great sport all around the world. It can't hurt ratings for basketball in China.
But at the same time, you're a little worried as a Bulls fan because he's in the Eastern Conference.
I'm not worried.
Suddenly there's a potential threat.
If you look at what has been happening with the Bulls, even with Rose out, even with Deng out, still got one of the best records in the league.
So you
that
like
is
your
a
team.
well-coached team. And I know you're a big Celtics fan.
Yeah.
Thank you for Thibodeau, who...
that hurts.
He's an outstanding coach. Doc
is.
Rivers is a great coach as well. But for us to have been able to get that guy, he has just done a great job with what we've got.
Why should you feel different about the Bulls this year than last spring when it was basically Derrick Rose going 1-on-5 in the playoffs? What makes you feel better about this year's team?
Deng seems more confident. Boozer's in better shape. Derrick Rose has matured. I'm a little worried about making sure that they give him enough rest with the back spasms that he had.
Yep.
But the Bulls, I think, are right in there. I think they've got a great chance. The Heat are playing better than anybody right now, and when those folks get going on the fast break, it's over. But during the playoffs, things slow down a little bit, and you got to run a half-court offense. And in that situation, I think the Bulls got a shot.
Over the last 5 years, how many times have you envisioned welcoming the world champion Chicago Bulls to the White House?
Every year, and it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen.
It will happen. You're like Joe Namath. You're guaranteeing it.
Well, I've got another 5 years here, and
you're guaranteeing that too.
Somewhere along the line, my Bulls are going to come through here. Absolutely.
You'll probably cry. You'll well up a little bit.
I probably won't do the whole Jordan hugging the ball thing.
Right. If you land on the ground.
That would be a little extreme. I'll be pretty happy, though.
I think you've set the record already for most championship teams that have been welcomed into the White House, or you're approaching the record. What was your favorite anecdote from when these championship teams come?
I got to say, the best one was actually the '85 championship Bears.
Because when they came back?
When they came back, because they had never gotten acknowledged, because it was on the same day as I think it was on when the Challenger happened, and so it was canceled, and it never got rescheduled. And to see these guys, Ditka and all the whole team come back. Buddy Ryan came back, and he's real ailing. But to see how much they appreciated it, how much they had wanted that acknowledgement.
Right.
It was a lot of fun, and Ditka couldn't have been more gracious, and everybody just had a great time, and we had a whole bunch of Bears fans here. That was probably as good as it gets. What's
the most fun sport for the team that come in? Like what are the funniest group of athletes?
Well, what's fun is when the women basketball players come in, because they're all gorgeous, and they're all 6'5", and wearing high heels. Right. And so they're walking around through the West Wing, and everybody's wondering what the heck's going on. And when Maya Moore and the Connecticut Huskies came, we actually went down to my little basket down here, and we played a game of horse.
You played with them?
Yeah, we played a game of horse. Now, Maya's always annoyed that I point out that I beat her. She was wearing high heels and a skirt at the time, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that counts.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The lockout just happened. You're a big NBA fan. I read some quote where you said you couldn't intercede because there were bigger fish to fry.
Right.
How close did you actually come to interceding? Because we reached this point where it was going to get canceled, basically, and it came down to the 12th hour.
I just had to assume that at some point they'd work it out. My whole theory, it's the same way with the NFL lockout. If you've got billionaires on one side and millionaires on another, you guys can figure out how to divide some money up. Mm-hmm. And ultimately they did. And it was the right thing to do. And, what's been encouraging is to see how fast the sports, bounced back. And, with Jeremy Lin and the Heat and, all the unbelievable young players that are out here right now, I think the sport's as popular as it's ever been. But I think it's real important for professional athletes and sports owners to just remember, you got a whole bunch of folks out here all across the country who invest so much in their teams, and they don't begrudge these guys making millions of dollars or the owners making gazillions of dollars. Most of them, very rarely can they afford to buy a ticket to go to an actual game. All they ask is, don't be so selfish about it that you're not looking out for your fans. And, if folks involved in professional sports remember that the reason they're making money is because, some hard-working guy out there is rooting for them and paying attention to them, then usually we should be able to sort these things out.
Is it true that you blacked the Chris Paul trade because you didn't want him to go to the Lakers?
I love Chris Paul. He's a great guy. He's on my presidential fitness council.
Oh.
And I got to know a lot of these guys because for my 49th birthday, I had my own little all-star game here, right?
I heard about that. I wasn't invited.
You weren't. Maybe next time. So Chris was one of the guys who played, and I did a little crossover on him. He claims that he could have stolen the ball. Everybody who was there knows that that's not true. The second time he might have stolen the ball. The first time he didn't know I had that move.
So you surprised him with it.
I did. Yeah. My crossover is solid.
Have you noticed that there is a notable difference in the way people defend you since you became the president when you're playing?
No, because I'm always getting knocked around. I don't know what people are talking about. Reggie Love, my former aide who played at Duke, and he's now getting his MBA, but he answered anybody who said that people took it easy on me when they played with me. He said, nobody takes it easy on Obama because if he beats them, they won't hear the end of it. And it's true. I will talk about folks just to make sure that they don't take it easy on me.
What about when you're playing golf? Do you get more 4-foot putts given to you than maybe you did before?
I don't take them.
You don't take them?
I am very proud of the fact I do not cheat when I'm playing golf. Anybody who plays with me, they'll say, I count my strokes. I count my strokes. I don't, I'm not getting 5-foot gimme putts.
I guess you have to play it that way, because then if people could leave and go, I played with Obama.
And he cheated.
Yeah, some kick a ball out of the rough or something.
Yeah.
Tell me about the college football playoff system that you once upon a time pushed for.
It looks like it's, I hear there's talk that they're going to at least start maybe with a 4-team playoff, which...
So you're happy about this?
Well, I'd rather see it 8 teams. But 4 is a good place to start. I think that gets us on the right trend. Nothing's more frustrating than at the end of the season, nobody knows who won. And, there's some poll, the coaches make a decision. Nobody knows what that means. Because part of what makes sports great, part of what makes March Madness great, the NFL playoffs great, is every once in a while something happens during the playoffs that shows the character of a team. Look at the Giants this year.
Yeah.
Nobody would have picked them. No, they wouldn't have been crowned as champions if you had a coaches poll at the end of the year. But they made the plays when it counted.
So if this happens, the Bulls are good again. You have a college football playoff system. So what's next? Maybe PEDs in baseball?
I think baseball's in pretty good shape.
All right. Concussions? Seems like this is we can't figure out this concussion.
Concussions is a tough one. I mean, when you see what's happened, I actually knew Dave Duerson, and used to see him at the gym sometime, and couldn't have been a nicer guy. And when you think about the toll that NFL players are taking, it's tough. Now the problem is if you talk to NFL players, they're going to tell you, that's the risk I take. This is the game I play. And I don't know whether you can make football if there's not some pretty significant risk factors. Part of the problem is just the speed and the size of these guys now is, you watch the old tapes from the 50s and 60s. Yeah. I mean, they look like they're going in slow motion. And now, they just had the combine, and they were talking about some guy who's like 340 who runs a 4.8, has a
quarterbacks around 4.4,
3-foot vertical, and I mean, I don't know what you do if a guy like that hits you.
I always wanted to hear, I've never heard you answer this question. You probably have, but I've never heard the answer. You throw in the first pitch in front of 60,000 people. You're obviously wearing a big bulletproof vest under your suit. You got all these people staring at you.
Completely stressful.
Is that the most stressful thing you have to go through?
It is about the most stressful thing.
Because if you ground it, it's on YouTube for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. And like you said, you got to wear this bulky vest. And what happens is they just hand you the ball. Here, and you walk out. If you had 3 tries, you'd be fine. Right? You'd throw a fast strike somewhere in there. But if it's that first ball, each time I go up there, my thinking is, all right, I'm just going to blaze this thing in. And then I'm thinking, man, if I throw a grounder, that's going to be a problem. So then I end up kind of lofting it up a little bit. And
so you throw a changeup.
Yeah, it clears the plate, but it's it's not what you'd like. During practice, you're throwing heat.
Do you remember the first one you had to do?
First one I had to do in the majors was actually when the White Sox were in the American League Championship.
Oh.
And I had just been elected U.S. Senator. And I just want to point out that after not only did they win that game, but they then won the next.
You're taking credit for that too.
Yeah,
I like it.
They pretty much swept. So I told them, if you need a lefty.
Yeah.
But I think the very first one was like a minor league team out in the western suburbs that I threw out a first pitch, and I think I did ground it, but fortunately nobody knew who I was, so it didn't get on YouTube.
Well, how much flexibility do you have with the vest? Like, do you have full, or do you have to go like sidearm?
It's a little bulky. You kind of
do that.
Yeah, but I give credit. I mean, when I think about George Bush and the pitch he threw
at 9/11, post 9/11, yeah.
Unbelievable pitch.
Right down the middle.
Right down the middle, and huge credit for that. I give that guy a lot of props for that one.
And I think Jeter said to him before the game, "Don't screw this up."
That's
or something
exactly
like
what he
that.
said.
And
Yeah,
put,
he
like,
saw
major pressure
he saw him behind the, behind the bullpen, I think, and said, "Yeah, don't screw it up," and he didn't.
I do feel like it's like a weirdly important thing to have your president be able to come out and throw like a half decent first pitch.
Yeah, it's funny. The the mythology of sports is just, it's deeply embedded in us. I remember I visited Iraq as a senator, and I think at that point I'd already started running for president, but I can't remember. Anyway, they invited me to go into this gym, and there were like 3,000 of our troops there, and somebody just handed me a ball and said, "Take a shot." And I said, "Okay," and I shot it and swished it from 3-point line. And the amount of excitement that those folks had, was surprising to me. But I think, it just sort of reminded me of the kind of bond that sports creates in people. People, for all our differences politically, regionally, economically, most folks understand sports. Partly because it's one of the few places where it's a true meritocracy. There's not a lot of BS ultimately. Who's winning, who's losing, who's performing, who's not. It's all laid out there.
I pride myself as being a very supportive parent. I go to my daughter's soccer games. I hit most of them. I try to go to all of them. I can't go to. I read that you go to every one of your daughter's basketball games. This can't be true. How do you go to every basketball game? Like, I feel bad about my own parenting.
First of all, they only play on Saturday morning.
Okay.
And usually I have to work on Saturday, but I can push my schedule back. So unless I'm traveling, I can go. And man, I have fun at those games. Yeah. Watching 9, 10-year-old girls playing basketball and just fierce, just intense about it, is terrific. And last year I actually did some coaching.
Really?
Yeah. Well, what happened was the coach for our team is this wonderful woman, and she works at like the National Institute of Health. She's never played basketball, but had volunteered and was doing a great job. But Reggie and I'd be sitting in the stands, and we'd be passing her notes and whispering. Finally, she said, "All right, well, why don't you guys?" So we took them to a local gym on Sundays and started running some practices. And so when she was gone, I'd actually sit in as the coach. And what's amazing is how much more stressful coaching and watching these girls was than when I was playing.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you just want them to win so bad, and when they actually run a play and it works, you're just ecstatic, and a couple of heartbreaking losses, and you're just feeling terrible. But they're wonderful, and what's great is that women's athletics, girls' athletics, I think makes all the difference in the world. I'm 50 now, so I went to high school in the 70s. We actually went to. I went to a school that had a strong women's sports team, but it was still not the norm for a lot of girls to participate in a lot of sports teams. And now it's just second nature, and they're healthier for it. They learn competition. They learn how to bounce back from adversity. It's just it's a terrific thing to see. And they've got so many role models now because there are so many unbelievable female athletes out there, and they can see that there's no contradiction between them being strong and tough and beautiful and confident. And yeah, it's a wonderful thing to see.
Well, you married into good genes, right?
Absolutely.
Your wife has some height. She's 6 feet, 6'1".
She's 5'11".
5'11".
But my brother-in-law, who's the coach at Oregon State,
he played.
He played at Princeton and then played overseas for a while. He's 6'6". So you know, they're potentially great athletes. The best athlete in our family is actually my niece, my brother-in-law's daughter, who lives out in Oregon, out in Corvallis, and she'll be D1. This is one of these things where she has to decide if she want to play softball, volleyball, or basketball. But she's good at everything.
So I got to go because we're running out of time. Quickly, who do you think's the best basketball player ever?
You got to go with Jordan. Is
that a Chicago pick or an NBA pick?
No. That's an NBA pick. You've never had a combination of talent and fierce will to win, and longevity, and rising to the occasion. Yeah, I haven't seen it. You know, you've got guys who are comparable in terms of talent. I mean, I think LeBron is as talented as Michael is. I think you've got guys like Bird who have that, Bird or Magic, who have that same will to win.
Yeah.
But combining that package and then just always being there at the moment, very rarely not, you know, hitting that shot like Utah right at the end, right?
I'm with you. It makes me mad when people compare, you know, whoever to Jordan. It's like, well, let's see somebody win the 6 titles and own the league like Jordan did. And
you know, the grace with which he played. I mean, there was a charisma to him on the court that you could not watch him when he's on the court. Unbelievable.
At what point did your paths finally cross?
You know, Michael ended up, obviously I was just a fan.
Yeah.
But when I ran for the United States Senate, we had some mutual friends, and Michael ended up supporting me, and I think I may have been like his first political check ever.
Really?
Yeah. And so we've been friends.
I'm sure you noticed that it seemed like many of the famous basketball players took particular interest in your campaign in 2008.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think they know that I take a great interest in them.
Yeah.
And I think they understand what it is to compete, and I think they took some pride in the first African American president, and so you know, and I can talk basketball with them. You know, we were down at an event at Vince Carter's house down in Florida, and Magic was there, and Chris Paul came. It was right before the All-Star game, so a lot of them are in town. And Chris had to leave early because he had some sort of Nike event that he had to go to. And so I just rang him up to say thank you for coming. And we started talking a little about basketball and how great the Clippers were doing. And I said, man, you know, Blake Griffin is unbelievable, and you guys seem to be really clicking. You know, I said, the only thing is you got to tell Blake to just take that 12, 15 footer when he gets it, because he's got a good stroke, but he always looks like he's hesitating a little bit because he wants to go inside. And if he starts getting that shot like Karl Malone, he'll be unstoppable. And Chris says, man, I just told him that. He said, he's going to be here in 2 minutes. Here, can you hold on? And I said, no, you can just go ahead
pass
and
it along.
Just pass it along. I will point out that you know, I think you know, he's been taking more outside jumpers. That's good. He's got to work on that shot, and he's going to be he could be the best power forward ever if he develops it.
Last question, quick, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Settle an office debate. Best Wire character of all time.
It's got to be Omar. Right? I mean, that guy's unbelievable, right?
We might break this down as like a March Madness bracket, and I think he was going to be the #1 seed.
He's got to be
Everyone's
the
in
#1
on
seed.
Omar, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, what a combination. Yeah, and couldn't. That was one of the best shows of all time.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Mr. President, thank you for being on the BS Report. It was
Enjoyed
a pleasure.
it. Appreciate you. Thank you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.